Hello YouTube, this is Gandalf here, taking you to the top of Infinite Magicraid gameplay. So today we're going to go over the topic of speed tuning, and this is probably one thing I get asked a lot in Discord and in Guild around. What is exactly should be my speed so that I don't get interrupted in my speed cleave combo? I don't know how many times you guys experienced this, where your space went, and then the opponent's space went, and they end up having their entire team go, but you're sitting there wondering, why didn't I go first? I had the faster space. So a common mistake we see is people put all of their fastest gear onto their space or their ascendo, thinking that I get first turn, I'm going to win this battle for sure. It's actually about the speed you need on every hero so that there is no gap and there's no possible chance of getting interrupted. So today I'm going to go over all of these details with you, and hopefully with this game knowledge you can speed tune your team a lot better so there's no chance of getting interrupted. If you haven't checked out my PvP hero roles guide, I highly recommend you do that, and that will help you get the basic understanding of what roles you want to put onto your PvP composition, and also be mindful of speed tuning in the sense that you want certain heroes to go immediately after the other one. When you don't have a turn meter hero in between, the best thing to do is literally have the identical speed with the two heroes and place the one you want to go before in the formation before it. So if you count the squares from the top row to the bottom row, if everybody's the same speed, the turn they will go order is in the order they show up on the boxes. So the closer to the speed you get, the less chance you get someone to cut in between your heroes. The other way is when you run turn meter boosting teams, where you boost the turn meter to full, so there is no chance of getting interrupted. So the one with the higher speed stat will end up going first in that case. So let's go dive right into it. I think the best way to explain speed tuning to people is to think about the turn meter bar and the heroes running like a 10-kilometer race. And the speed you have is how fast they can go, let's say per hour or something. So let's take space for example. So space always gets a head start. So space gets a 26% turn meter boost at the start of her turn. So what that means, unlike every other hero that's racing against space, space gets to start. We're going to draw a line here. So space gets to actually start. Instead of starting at the 0 mark to finish this 10,000 kilometer race, she gets to start at 2,600. So we're going to just write that down. All right, now you got Ben Austin here, who has the highest based speed hero. We're just going to grab ourselves a Ben Austin here and put him on the screen. So we got Ben Austin here racing against space. So the question we want to know is, well, how fast does the Ben Austin have to be to say, just trying to beat say a 2,000 speed space, right? How fast does your Ben Austin needs to be? So this is a noob space, a new, only 2,000 speed here. So the question is, how fast does your Ben Austin have to be to beat this space? Well, the way you want to think about it is, well, how long is it going to be for this space to finish running this race? So space here only has to run 7,400 meters, right? So 10,000 minus that. So the amount of time space needs to take is just divided by 2,000. My bad here. So 74, right? 74,000. So 74 comes from 10,000 minus 2,800. And that is 3.7 seconds. Let's just say that's, how long it needs to finish this race, right? So that means in order for Ben Austin to finish this race and go before space, Ben has to finish 10,000 meters in 3.7 seconds. So how fast does Ben Austin have to go? Well, that's a simple math question, right? So all we have to do here for Ben Austin is 10,000 divided by 3.7 seconds, which gives us, let me grab a calculator. I can't do that in my head. Um, so if you take a calculator out, divide by 3.7, and you get 2702.8 or 7. So all you need to do, and you need to round this number up. So as long as you're Ben Austin, and this is, I mean, you always have to round up. It's not round to the nearest number. You have to round to the higher number here. So as long as your Ben Austin is 2,703 in speed, it's going to be the 2,000 speed space. So that's why you can see, wow, it's pretty hard to get to 2,700 speed for the average player. So, but getting to 2,000 speed is super easy, right? So that's why for any hero like Popper, Ascendo, where you're getting a starting turn meter, it is a massive speed boost. That's also what makes Quinlan and Panda E2, both of them, super useful because you can actually run them at super slow speed. Like, let's just say they are running at 1600 speed, right? But if they're slower than the entire opponent team, they're at 50% of the race already. So to finish the rest of the race, they can beat heroes out pretty much, twice their speed, right? So it would take a 3201 Ben Austin to outrun a 1600 speed Panda. Funny joke there because, those who know Panda and Guild, he's really slow. But Panda can outrun everybody when he's at 50% speed boost. He is like getting that head start, right? So getting the head start is super important to going first. So understanding some of these concepts allow you to kind of figure out, okay, this is how speed tuning works. Think about it as here's the turn meter bar. Think about the speed you have is basically the speed. Turn meter means you get that early start. And really it's about calculating the amount of time it takes the first hero to finish. And as long as all the other heroes now can finish with it, you're guaranteed not to get cut off. Because as long as your first hero is faster than the rest, it means the rest of your heroes, as long as they meet that speed threshold, they're going to go as well. So we're going to go quickly right into an example here. So this is a classical composition, and this is two players usually racing against each other. That's why often if you run a space versus another person's space, and they got a secondary speed turn booster and you don't, very likely you're going to lose because their second mover is probably faster than your second mover. Because if you just try to run a space with like a stripper and a bunch of damage dealers, that's not going to work because their space plus another turn meter boost is going to be way faster. And we're going to show that with a quick example here. Let's use some simple numbers here and say, how fast we'll use some realistic numbers, right? Let's try a 2500 speed space here, and we're going to ask the question, well, when space starts, what's going to happen here? So space is going to start here at the 2600 mark. So that means the space is going to finish the rest of the race, right, in 74,000 divided by 2500. So that's going to be 74 divided by, that's going to be 2.96 seconds. So in 2.96 seconds, space is going to finish the race. Now, what's going to happen is, assuming the opponent's space is at 2499, right? If you have a Guhana, that means your space just went, and your Guhana doesn't have to run the whole race anymore. Your Guhana actually only has to run 7,000 meters because the turn meter is already boosted there, right? So then your Guhana speed, as long as your Guhana is, so let's quickly calculate. So as long as your Guhana is going to be able to run 7,000 meters in 2.96 seconds, which is 2,030.65. So as long as your Guhana is higher than this speed, Guhana is not get interrupted. And that's going to be the situation because equivalently, Guhana would have ran that fast, right? Now, if your opponent, then, so now when Guhana goes, Well, if you think about Nita, even if Nita hasn't finished running, somewhere along the line here, right? As as space is running, Nita's running, but Nita all of a sudden is going to get that 30% boost, another 20% boost. So effectively, as long as Nita can finish 50% of this race in that 2.965 second, you're going to be okay. So what is the speed of what is the speed required for Nita here? Well, it's just going to be 5,000 divided by 2.96, which means is 5,000 divided by 2.96, and that means your Nita can be super slow. So we just round that up to 1690. So as long as your Nita is faster than this number, as long as your Guhana is faster than this number, it doesn't matter how fast, it doesn't matter. As long as your space goes, you're not going to get interrupted. And that's super important. Imagine you didn't have this Guhana. Well, that will immediately just mean that as long as they have, something more than, as long as they have a second mover faster than your Nita with a little bit of turn boost, they can just cut in between and move right ahead of you. So when you're building your team composition, you want to make sure that when your space finished running, like if your first turn meter mover goes, you want to make sure the rest of your hero team, all of them can finish this race, right? If you don't meet these thresholds, that means they haven't gotten to their turn yet. So in this little time window here, let's just say your Guhana was 2400, right? So there's going to be a tiny little margin here that allows the enemy team to cut in. So say they got a 2480 space and then a 2465 Guhana. There's a very good chance that they will end up cutting you, and then they get first turn, and then you just get KO'd. So super important to understand this concept. You need to understand the importance of getting your second mover to the right speed, so then you can make sure your entire team goes. All right. We're going to do one last example, which is about pushing the turn meter back, which is a little bit different in concept. Pushing someone's turn meter back is actually the concept more like you're making them run more than the 10,000 meter to get to their turn. And this is really critical because, and that's why when I say, which one would you rather have? Push your opponent back by 20% turn meter or gain 20% turn meter? Always gaining gives more. Not just for the reason of there is a talent that reduces the effectiveness of pushing the turn meter back, but if you think about the amount of time it takes, making your race 8,000 meters versus making somebody else race 12,000 meters, you actually run a lot faster. So you can just quickly calculate that, right? One, if both people are equally fast, that means it's like 12,000 divided by 1,000, 10,000, sorry, versus the other situation where they're still going to have to run 10,000, but you need to run 8,000. The second situation, you're more favored. You can have a lower ratio of speed to the other person and still beat them in that situation. So always, when you can, bring speed forward versus bring back. Now with Lydia is a little bit different because if your hero is imprisoned, you can't get a turn meter. That's why I hate Lydia so much, because I don't have one at E3. So let's talk about then the counter to Lydia too is you want to bring a whole bunch of heroes that push them back, right? Popper is a great example of pushing it back by 24%, and then Rian is going to do 40%. Often we like to see the Panda Nazil composition as a great way to counter Nazils, right? They could probably run a Nazil and then a really super fast second follow-up hero trying to either strip, control, add turn meter. That's often seen. But here with Panda is going to move and get a 20% turn meter, and then Rian is going to be able to get a 10%. So is the rest of your team. So this math gets a little bit more complicated, and then let's look at what will happen and how fast. Let's put another Ben Austin on the screen here. How fast of a Ben Austin, let's just say, usually what you want to do is you want to think about some benchmark speeds, right? Let's talk about a crazy fast Ben Austin at 3,000 speed. What do you kind of need to beat that. Okay, or I mean, we could try something a little bit more realistic. I know a few people out there with 3K speed Ben Austin, but realistically, I think we're seeing them more like, even on high-end gameplay, they're around 2700. So let's talk about a 2700 Ben Austin and a Nazil comp. You got Catherine, you got a whole bunch of other heroes in it, but the Nexus fastest mover is Ben Austin. And let's talk about, what does the rest of your team has to look like to beat a comp like this? So let's just write these numbers down here. So Ben Austin's at 2700 speed. We're going to try to build a team that's going to beat this. So, and you got an E0 Panda here. And for, I mean, it doesn't really matter once you have a much faster Panda, because usually that allows you to go first. But let's just say we got an E0 Panda. How fast does the E0 Panda have to be to help the rest of your team cleanse? So first, we know if you do get hit by Nazil, all of a sudden, right, your Panda is now going to run only an 8,000 meter race. Your Rian is going to have to run only a 9,000 meter race. So let's quickly calculate then. How fast do our Panda needs to be? So you use the reference speed of your enemy opponent as your reference speed. So let's quickly do that math here. So you will have to run 9,000 meters, and you have to beat a Ben Austin. So Ben Austin. So we're gonna have to beat the time that Ben Austin takes, right? So Ben Austin is gonna take 10,000 divided by 2,700. So Ben Austin again is gonna take 3.703 repeating decimals seconds to finish the race. So that's kind of how fast everybody else have to be kind of at. So then Panda will need to finish hitting 9,000 meters and divided by 3.7037. So that will mean your Panda will have to be 2431. And that's kind of hard to get as a free to play, but hey, we can all hope to have really good, tough gear. Well, actually, it's a lot easier now because you do have the whole dexterity set to get the effect risk and the speed. So it's possible to get to Panda this speed still with 100% effect resistance, right? Then you got your Rian. So then Rian now has to run ninth. Sorry. Okay, so I'm so sorry. My bad. This is the amount of distance Rian has to run because 9,000. Panda actually needs to be just a little bit shorter. So this is a lot more attainable. So Panda is only have to run 8,000. So 8,000 divided by 7.7037. So it's only 21. So 8,000 divided by 3.7037 equals 2160. So these numbers are much more attainable, right? My Rian is 2550, and my Panda is at 2300 or so. So in this particular setup, when you get hit by something like this, it really allows you to beat out the rest of Nazil's team by just simply getting that small turn meter boost on your team, because effectively, you're about 90% of the speed of Ben Austin, and you're able to outspeed it, and you just need to be 80% of that Ben Austin speed for Panda to do the cleanse, and Panda will end up going faster than Rian. Now you got to be super careful here, right? Remember this ratio here. It's really a 9 to 8 ratio. Now what I usually recommend people do is actually put their Panda at 90% instead of at 88.8%, because sometimes I see people run Ascendo and Nazil together, and Ascendo pushes everybody back to meter 10%, but Panda is going to get 20 back, so Panda is going to get the 10, and everybody else, well, it will still be the same. So really in that case, to make sure your Panda don't somehow end up going slower than your Rian, you want to make sure that your Panda is at least 90% the speed of Rian. So that's a good rule of thumb if you have E0 or E1 Panda out there, is if you want to cleanse your rest of your team, everybody has to be slower than, so you take Panda speed, divide that by 0.9, and everybody else has to be slower than that. Okay? So here, it's the situation. So for example, if I want to tune my team, I'll probably do something safe like 2200 and 2440. Right? That will be a good number to beat out this team. Well, the next part we want to understand is, well, how slow can my Slacto be? Because I wouldn't want to waste that much stat on my DPS, on my strip, to be able to clearly beat out the rest of their team. Well, as soon as Rian goes, they're going to be pushed back 40%. Now remember, there is a talent out there that I believe can reduce the effect of turn meter pushback by 15%. So that 40%, we're going to just write that on the screen here. So a 40% pushback times 1 minus 0.5 for reducing the effectiveness pushback, you're going to be left with 34% turn meter pushback. So effectively, you can think about it this way. Everybody now on the opponent's team has to run, they have to run 13,400 meters, while your Slacto only has to run 9,000. Right? So, and in the same amount of time. And it's going to be a different amount of time now, right? Slacto doesn't have to run this. So we have to do the new calculation. So Ben Austin is going to have to now run this much distance, right? 13,400 divided by 27, which is 134 divided by 2,700. And that means you have 4.963 seconds for Slacto to finish running his race. So then your Slacto will just have to do 9,000 meters in 4.963. So 9,000 divided by 4.963. Your Slacto can be as slow as 1813.4. So let's round up. Understanding these numbers are super important, because if you think about min-maxing, especially at endgame where people are going to be trying to squeeze the last little bit of stat into the stat that you need, you only get so many rolls on equipment and artifacts. You want to be making sure all of your stats are not wasted. Why make your Slacto 2000 in this composition when clearly 1800 is enough for you to finish this combo, 1814, right? So that's 200 speed you could have put into your attack, crit damage, and everything else. So if you want to play at the top of your game, understanding how to speed tune and knowing where to distribute your stat is super important for min-maxing. So hopefully this video is really helpful for you. We can do a lot more complicated example. If you're stuck and you need some help, feel free to post in the comment, and I'll be glad to help you out. Hope to see you guys next time. If you like what you see here, please support me by liking it, subscribing it, and follow me. Take care. Bye.